Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of two fascinating women. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full names, where you're based, and share your stories with us today.
Hello, my name's Georgina Holledge. I'm founder of One of a Kind Studio. We're based in the UK. My story it actually starts last summer because I moved house. I moved from London into the countryside. I'd had a super busy day with my children who had exhausted me to the point of being in bed by 8:30. And as I was looking out of my window into the beautiful countryside, I also sort of looked around the room at all of the empty walls and how I really wanted to fill those with art. I've always wanted to start my own business. I've always wanted to have my own passion project. Art has always been something that I've been interested in, that I've loved. I love going to galleries. I love, buying art when I can. And so as I lay there, I thought, is this the opportunity? Is this the opportunity to bring those two together and start an art business for myself as a passion project? So that's where the idea sort of germinated, and it was really about original art, about making sure that there was a space for original art to be seen and celebrated. I looked online and I could only find kind of very mass-produced prints or really expensive sort of mortgage price art pieces. And I realized that there might be a gap, a niche for one-of-a-kind art that's a bit more accessible to the everyday person. So when I started researching this, I actually discovered that women are hugely underrepresented in the commercial art industry. Even though more women graduate from arts programs than men, in London at least, of all of the artists in the commercial art galleries, only 32% are women. And when you look at things like art auctions, art from women sells for 42% less than art from men. In fact, last year, there was a record broken for the highest auctioned piece by a woman artist, Frida Kahlo, which was celebrated, and quite rightly so, but actually it was 8 times less than the previous record held by a man. So that was it. That was my mind made up. I said, I have to do this for women. That's my purpose, is to give women artists a platform to be seen and heard. And so I started reaching out to a host of different artists, Shveta included, who very, very kindly introduced me more to the art industry and, agreed to come on this crazy journey with me to set up this business for women artists. And here we are now, sort of 5-6 months in. And I'm absolutely loving the process because I get to work with such wonderful women like Shveta, who in themselves are all one of a kind. And it's just been an incredible few months getting it up and running, going and exploring this whole new world to me. I still have a job in marketing, which is where my skill set comes in to support these women artists. And I have 2 young children, so my life is busy, super busy. But this is the part I really, really look forward to. It's a part for me, and it's a part for the women that I work with, and it brings me a lot of joy. And that's what this has all been about for me.
That's amazing. Thanks, Georgina, for that. Hi, my name is Shveta Maini, and I am based out of the UK as well. I'm an abstract artist, and my story began about 25 years ago. And I very distinctively remember that. So I've painted all my life as a child. It's been art classes and drawing, and I've always had a passion for art. But this particular afternoon in Mumbai, it was a hot afternoon. I was recently married, and I remember going to an art store and just buying some canvases. And previous to this particular day, I think I was always taught to observe things, and my style was always about trying to replicate something, and almost staying between the lines. And I remember this afternoon I pulled out the canvases and I just painted intuitively. It was all about my brushstrokes. It was so freeing, and I think I will always remember that moment where I felt like, oh my god, I can breathe. And I think it was at that particular it was at that particular time that I genuinely realized that I do not have to paint between the lines. I can do whatever it is that I want to do. And I think that's where I realized the freedom for me came from. The freedom for me has been to paint intuitively, not look at something, not replicate something, but it's almost, grabbing things out of memory, be it smells and colors or whatever that might be a trigger, and to then sort of just put that all on canvas. And I think I've never really looked back from then. I've always continued to paint. I have only recently started, well, I say recently, it's been about 8 years since I've been selling my work professionally. And I think it was pretty much around COVID that I realized that, this is something that I've enjoyed doing all my life. And, like when it's a quiet time when everyone was sort of in their homes, I think that's when it deeply resonated that if I don't do this now, I'm going to regret it. And I think that for me was again another turning point during COVID, where I decided that I am going to get sort of take a class in sales and marketing to be able to figure out how to sell my work. It's not just so much about creating the art. I think there's so much that goes into when you're a full-time artist. It involves marketing, it involves sales, it involves administrative stuff. There's just a whole bunch of stuff that you need to sort of be on top of. And I honestly have not regretted going full-time as an artist ever.
Thank you so much, ladies. Absolutely wonderful to hear your stories and how this all came together. I've been looking for more creative women to step up to the mark and come on the Her Story platform. And it's just fascinating what happens when you put yourself out there, you take a chance on something like you did, Georgina, and now you're supporting so many women along the way. So I'm going to ask you questions and we'll kind of tag team if you could both answer these questions one by one.
Mm-hmm.
What was that exact moment that made you realize that you were living within invisible lines? We'll start with you, Georgina.
I think it was that moment when I was literally lying in bed, 8:30 at night. It was summer. It was hot. I was looking out on this beautiful countryside, and I just felt kind of a weight lift, because I definitely have always been a corporate girly. I've worked my way up to a senior position in the company that I work in currently. I was led to believe that is success. That's how I was brought up. That's what school taught me. That's what university taught me. That's what my business taught me. And I just felt that wasn't enough. And at the same time, having two young children, I'm sure a lot of women feel this. as much as we absolutely adore our children, it does take a part of us away, a part of our identity away as women. And there is a shift that happens that creates those invisible lines. So I was feeling them from two angles. One was, from my corporate job. Another one was from being a mother. And I realized I didn't have anything for me. And that's where this was born out of. It was this passion project that I needed to break down those invisible lines and to give myself kind of I don't know the word, just let myself go and do something for me that wasn't for anyone else, which I think was, it was a hard decision to make, and it's scary. It's really scary, but I thought I just have to do it. I have to give it a go, and I haven't looked back.
That's beautiful. What about you? Same question.
Well, I think a lot of what Georgina says resonates with me too. But like I said, that I think for me, again, I realized I think growing up in an Indian culture, I think it's very different from, how obviously I'm bringing up my children here. I have a daughter who's 16 years old. And I find that all throughout my life, I have had to live within a set of boundaries. And I think it's a very cultural thing. I think growing up, it was always, you were meant to follow a certain path. You could do certain things, especially as a girl growing up in India. The rules are very, very different to, say, how a boy is raised in India. And I think for me, I kind of didn't question any of it. So, when I was 18, deciding where I wanted to go to university, I wanted to go to art school. And the first thing that came back is absolutely not, right? Like, you are not going to art school. You will never make any money. That is not what we do. And I never questioned it, right? I never questioned, but why? Why can't I do it? And, just push forward. And I think, I got to a point where, at 24, I was, had an arranged marriage. And again, living within these invisible lines, as you say, you have to play a part of, you're now a wife and you've got work and you're doing, you're sort of juggling a lot of things. And I think, like I said, like when I painted just for myself without caring what would be the outcome of this particular piece of work, right? It was not for anybody. It was purely just for me. And I think it was so insanely liberating to feel that, do you know what? I can actually do whatever I want or whatever I put my mind to. And I think continuing in that, and that's the thing, right? Like, it's very difficult to break your conditioning. And I've now gotten to 40, well, I'm going to be 48 this year. And I see that with my children, and I'm very mindful of it. It's very, very hard to break that conditioning, but every single day I try and push myself. Even now, like, my parents are like, you need to get a real job. Because they don't understand it, right? And I think what's actually heartwarming is now when my 8-year-old son is like, oh no, Nani, she does have a job. She is an artist, right? And I think for me, in a way, I feel like that has made such a mass, I have been able to bring about that shift from how I was raised to now how my children are standing up for what they think I should be allowed to do. So I think for me, that's it.
So let's stay with you for my next question. What does freedom mean to you personally and professionally now?
So I think freedom for me personally means that whilst I know my decisions impact my little family, but I also believe that as women, we are always putting our families before ourselves, not just professionally, but personally. Like, you have a baby, you get it's not like your husband takes the time off. He'll take a little bit of paternity leave, but
Yeah.
ultimately your life has completely changed. And I think for me, freedom in the sense is that now I've reached a point where I'm like, I love all of you. I love you all deeply, but there are certain things that are non-negotiable for me, and art is one of them. So if that means I need to go to an art fair, where I need to be away from my family for about a week, you know,
Mhm.
my husband will,
The
pick
time.
it up, and he will take on more, and he will support me. And I think that's where the difference is. If you're surrounded by people who support you, anything's possible. And I think, if you're not surrounded by a community of people who are like-minded and supportive, everything's just so much harder.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of work, I allow myself the freedom to try different things. Like, when I met Georgina, I absolutely loved her authenticity. I absolutely loved what she was trying to achieve here. And as she says, right, you know, there are so many women artists, but in terms of value of art,
Mhm.
it's there's such a huge disparity, and that
Mhm.
needs to be corrected at some point. And I always feel like what Georgina is trying to do here is not just one something where you're bringing in a bunch of women artists. It's a movement, and it starts somewhere. It has to start somewhere small, and hopefully in a few
Well,
years it makes that difference. Fingers
yeah,
crossed.
but Georgina, what about you?
Personally, my freedom is actually quite similar to Sveta. I think, again, being a mother, I'm in a very different life stage. My children are very young, so that is not as applicable. But I do have an incredibly supportive husband, who enables me to do things like right now he's taking my son out for a walk because
Yes.
because I wanted them out of the house so I could record this and not have
Yeah.
those distractions. He took my daughter to school this morning, so he kind of alleviates home stresses for me, so I can focus on these sorts of things that I love doing. um
Mhm.
and professionally, it's really about flexibility.
Yeah.
I would, love to have ultimate flexibility about how I spend my day and where I need to be at different times. And that is a pull from, my job, from what I do here, from being with my children. To have real freedom would be to be able to essentially make enough money at this to have real flexibility in how I go day to day.
Yeah.
I want to be at the nativity plays. I want to be, turning up for sports day. I want to be able to do all of those things for my children, and be present for them. And if there's a day where they're really tired, they don't have to go to after school club. I could pick them up early, and give them that breather, because I think I was
Mhm.
very privileged in that my mum was a stay-at-home mum, so I only had the regular school day. I didn't have after school club. I didn't have breakfast club. I think it's a really long day for small children. I think it's a really long day. So if I could get to a point of flexibility, that would, be freedom for me. I don't,
Yes.
that would be wonderful. It's a pipe dream, I think.
So, why do you believe so many talented women remain unseen? Go back to you, Shweta.
um I think women in general, we're really hard on ourselves, right? I find
Mhm.
that, and this is just something I've noticed across the board. Um,
Yeah.
and I actually genuinely see that between my two children. One's a girl, one's a boy, right? I think as women, we're just constantly drowning ourselves in self-doubt, right? Oh, and the funny thing is, we're actually way better, way better than like a whole lot of people. But it's that constant, and I think it's probably got to do with the fact that we've got to juggle all of these things, and we've got
Mhm.
to be on top of it, that the bar just keeps going higher and higher, right? And I think for me, from what I've noticed, that is the most, that is the block that keeps a lot of women, way lower than they should be. It's that self-doubt. I'm not good enough. Or will I be able to do this? I have children. I have to run a home. Can I be creative? Or do like, can I do this? It's always like you're seeking permission from somebody else to live your own life.
Yeah. So it's a tough one because, like you say, you are juggling so many balls. What about you, Georgina? Same question.
I think it's coming from two different angles. I think you've got the legacy in the history of male dominance in this sector. You walk into any National Art Gallery, portrait gallery, it's all men. That's how it is. That's how it's been in a lot of sectors across the course of history. Men have generally dominated. I think the thing with art is it's celebrated, the richness of the legacy and the history behind a piece of art is celebrated. The price goes up the older it is, and so naturally you're going to have this continued dominance that goes through the industry, and I definitely think that's playing a part. But I also think there's another side of it, because even when you go into contemporary art galleries, there is still a lot of male artists in there. I was actually quite shocked because I went on a little weekend away with my husband a few months ago and popped into a gallery down there. Very contemporary, all new artists. They were all men. And it was run by a woman. And I found that quite shocking. Yeah, it was run by a woman. Women actually spend 46% more on art than men do. If all of those women just decided to buy women artists, we wouldn't have this problem.
That's so true.
But then the other side of it is very personal. I think Shveta's absolutely right. And certainly all of the women that I've been working with, they all have confidence issues. They all do. All of us do. We have these insecurities that I think a lot of men just don't. And I think that comes from the amount of weight we carry from the various roles and responsibilities we have to have as women. It's both. I think, you've got the legacy, you've got the societal pressures, and then you've also got these very, very personal blockers that a lot of women have. And even on a lot of the ways in which people are getting out there in the contemporary world as artists is through social media.
Yeah.
And even that takes confidence to sit and talk to camera and tell someone why they should buy your art. It's
so
really intimidating for a lot of women. The ones that are doing really well, they glam up, and it's really sad. Like a lot of the younger women artists, they're very glam. They don't, there's almost a bit of sexuality in it of how they're promoting their art, and it just makes me so sad. So I think there's a whole host of things at play, but it's very hard. It's very hard.
So can you share a moment when you doubted your path, and what shifted? What made you change your mind?
So I think for the longest time, it's a bit hard to sort of answer that if there was a moment. I think for me, the constant theme that seems to be is that the doubt is constantly there about, am I doing the right thing? But it's also every day telling yourself that no, you are doing the right thing. So I think for me, I wouldn't ever put it down to one specific moment in time, but I do realize that you wake. So my background was in textiles. That's my degree. I've studied textiles. I've worked in fashion for over 20 years now, right? And I remember when I decided to go full time, I thought to myself, oh, you know what? I could manage both. But because both my jobs are so very creative, I was finding that I would go into work, and it involves a lot of drawing. I'm a print designer, by degree and by profession for the last 25 years. And, so it's extremely creative. I love my job, but I'd come back completely depleted creatively, right? And I just did not want to look at another paintbrush or anything, right? And then I would say, And then I would say to myself, do you know what? I'll just do it over the weekend. And then the weekend comes, you want to hang out with your family, with your children, there's a whole bunch of stuff happening. So the art would always keep getting pushed. The personal art would keep getting pushed into a corner, right? And so then I thought to myself, do you know what? If I have to do this, I have to do it full. I have to get into it full time. And it was the most scariest thing I have done. I quit my job and I started doing this with absolutely no clue as to, because it was a completely different industry, right? Like, when you train to be something, or you go to school, you go to university, you're given a little sort of stepping stone into, this is what you need to do, this is the way you follow, and this is your sort of career trajectory, right? At 40 you decide, okay, now I'm putting a stop to that, but I'm going to start like something that I've always wanted to do as a child. Where do I start from, right? And then it's scary because you don't have a stable income coming in, and the sales are not as many, and I think that's what I've realized, right? Like, sometimes it's okay to be scared, and it's okay to think, oh my god, like, what am I doing? But I think if you can get past that, and that's where the thought of like trying to tell yourself, to allow yourself to be scared, but then face your fear full on and keep doing what you genuinely believe is something you have to follow. And for me, like, my passion was, I wanted to be an artist. And I think every day is that, it's like, oh my god, am I making enough money? Oh my god, it's like, oh, am I selling enough? But what I have realized is, from when I first started to where I am now, like, 6-7 years down, oh my god, I started my first year, I sold like 3 paintings, like 3. And those 3 felt like, oh my god, I had won the lottery, right? And now, like, 8 years down, I sell about 50 to 60 paintings a year, and
Wow.
you feel like, oh,
Nice.
oh my god, like, now that is proof that this,
Right.
whatever it is, you need to follow it through.
I'm going to ask you a different question. What role does confidence play in creative expression, in pricing, and how are you supporting your artists to own that space that they're in right now?
Yeah, I think in actually creating the work, every artist is very individual in how they approach that. And sometimes I think it's about confidence. I mean, I can't really speak for them. I'm not an artist myself. So everyone I speak to has a very different process and a very different mindset that they go into. And they have, some people need to have a very dedicated space, a studio, somewhere they go for a number of hours to be able to get their heads down and get into the flow. Others dip in and out. There's very different varies of process and I guess confidence levels that go into that. It's then how confident they are with the piece of work that comes out of that to price it in the right way. And I think it's hard because I believe from my conversations, a lot of galleries will sort of help with the pricing, but normally pulling it down. I'm about the other way. So, the way in which I've set up the business is to make sure that the artists aren't losing any money from working with me. They can set the pricing, and actually, in some instances, I've said, I don't think that's enough. I think you need to up it a little bit. Because they need to value what they're doing. I remember having one conversation with an artist that I worked with, and I said, why have you priced it at that? And she sort of said, oh, I just think that's kind of maybe what I could get. And I said, well, how long did it take you to make it? And how much were the materials that went into it? And when we boiled down to it, I said, you're making less than minimum wage.
Like, time, the materials,
your heart and soul has got into this. Someone is paying for your heart and soul, and that's the thing with original art, that you can't replicate it. Just one exists, and that's what's so special about it. So as much as I want it to be accessible for people to be able to buy into, I do think it needs to be a balance between accessibility and value and what the artist gets at the end of the day. So I've got a real broad range on the website of anything from kind of £175 all the way up to £3,000. So it really depends on what you're getting and how much has been poured into that piece of work. It's not about status, it's about the value of the work and what's gone into it.
So, Shveta, what are the biggest barriers that women artists face today?
So I think as women artists,
We talked about confidence, but there's other things too, right?
I think there's visibility. I think, I think, and I want to say it is a lot of artists, but I think in terms of women artists, I think it's the visibility. And as Georgina says, like a lot of it's interesting, like in our circle, a lot of the male artists are somehow just taken more seriously compared to women artists. Like I think for a lot of women, it's like, oh, it's a hobby. No, it's not a hobby. This is work for me, right? Like, and I want to make money off this. I think it's how people are perceived, which then gives them the opportunity, so galleries take you in. And ultimately, like, I talk about this to Georgina a lot. I think everything's about visibility in this day and age. And I think if you can find a way to be seen, people will take you more seriously. I want to say it's the sad truth, because nothing, it doesn't in any way show the talent. You could be an extremely talented person, but if you do not have a platform where you're visible, you're just as good as you are basically invisible, right? And I think a lot of women struggle with getting that visibility, because again, everything has like a knock-on effect, right? So if you're not taken seriously, you're not let into certain circles, you're not let into certain galleries. And then if you're not showing with certain galleries, then you're not taken as seriously. So I think it's like a stepping stone. And I have to say, it's a lot of the landscape is changing, with the way the world's changing. I think a lot of it's changing. There are a lot of people supporting, like Georgina is one of a kind, is supporting women artists, and there is a shift, there is a massive shift. A lot of women artists are now curators. There are a lot of women who are managing their own businesses, and they are mindful of like how they're making women more inclusive in what they're showing. And I think so it's changing. But at the same time, I think, like I go back to, ultimately it comes down to visibility. It's where you are, who you're showing with, what are the avenues that you are able to get yourself into to then, be able to thrive.
I love that. Georgina, how does your platform or your work challenge traditional systems in your industry?
So coming into the art industry, because I wasn't a part of this world before, but I have definitely been one of those people in the past that's walked into an art gallery and felt quite intimidated. And I'm not an unconfident person, but walking into those galleries where it is white walls and a very, very stark space, and there's people standing there with very posh accents who know a lot about this stuff, and you just want to have a little wander around. You spend the whole time feeling a little bit tense, like they're watching you, like you might try and nick a piece. I wanted to do the opposite of that. When I talk about accessibility, it's not just about pricing, it's about the culture and making sure that people can connect to the art without feeling that kind of like, oh, should I be here? This is only for really rich people kind of vibes.
Right.
And it's not. There's a lot of people out there that want to be able to own original art, and they might save, or they might have, a birthday or something that they want to treat themselves with. And then
Yes.
actually, it's not that inaccessible. If you look at the amount of money that women will spend on beauty, healthcare, all of that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
it's a choice to spend on that side of things rather than spending it on a piece of art, which will last a hell of a lot longer. You
Yeah.
might choose to spend money on a spa weekend, which is lovely, but you could spend that money on a piece of art. So it's a choice that we're making, and I think it's because a lot of people don't think about it because they think it's shut off to them. It's not their world. So that's what I'm trying to do a bit differently, and I've done that even with the branding. Every
Right.
gallery website I went on, it was white and black. It was very clean. It's very One of a Kind is the opposite. It's loud, it's colorful. You go on there and it's kind of like, we're here, like, celebrate art with us. And that's what I try and get across in my marketing messaging as well, because I don't, and I've certainly had, look down the nose at from a few other people that I've spoken to. Because I'm just me. I'm not going to pretend to know loads of stuff about art. I didn't study history of art. I just work with artists that I think need to be seen, that I love their work, and that they are really lovely people. That's actually really more important to me, that I'm helping these women rather than picking things because it's going to be super pretentious and very, rich people.
So, Shveta, what mindset do women need to move from being hidden to being seen?
Ooh, I think for women, I speak personally here. I think my mindset is what you're scared of, you have to try it. Like what you fear, you've got to push past the fear. And I think it's like doing this podcast, right? Or my first interview ever was with Georgina, and
Right.
she arrived. She sent me a few set of questions, and I thought to myself, well, actually, when she asked me, my first reaction was like, oh God, no, like I cannot be, like I can't do this. I won't be good on camera, or I won't sound like I'm making any sense, or like it was like a whole bunch of things that I started thinking about. I was like, my first reaction was like, oh, I don't think I want to do this. And then I thought about it and I was like, no, do you know what? How bad can it be? If I don't try, I won't know, right? And so Georgina obviously sends me these like list of questions that I need to perhaps look at, and then pick a few questions that I would like to talk about. And I thought to myself, okay, I need to make this sound like really good. So obviously started writing my notes, like tried to make it all very cohesive. And then I read through it, and then obviously Georgina arrives, lovely. We go to my studio, she takes all these photographs, and the whole vibe is really lovely. We're chatting, we're talking, we're sharing stories, like personal stories of how we are, where we got to, why we did. And then we sit down and do this recording.
Right.
And at no point was I like, oh my God, how do I look? Oh my God, like, is this my fat side or my thin side? It was like, you sit down, she put the camera there, and we just started talking. And it took a little getting used to it, because obviously I had prepped all these sheets where I was like, I'm going to make it all sound like really put together. And then halfway through, I was like, I can't even remember what I've written, right? And then you just literally have to go with the flow. And when obviously Georgina started like promoting my work, and she put snippets of the interview, my first reaction was like, like, oh my God, like look at that, look at this. So does this even make sense? But do you know what? At the end of it, all I remember from that particular experience was I really had a good day. I got to speak about things. Me and Georgina just chatted. She took, I don't know, 3 trains to come and see me. Yeah, like something ridiculous. I was like, oh my God, right? And she had to go back to pick up her kids. But all I remember is like, I had such a fun day with this lovely woman. And now I have a video to show for that day, right? And it may not be, really beautifully put together, or, you know, I wasn't looking my thinnest or my prettiest or whatever it is, right? But it doesn't matter. The message got across. And
That's awesome.
you got a chance to do something you've never done before. And I think
Yeah.
that is the mindset that we all need to sort of get past, is that, you know, do something that you don't think you'll ever do, and you'll be
Yeah.
so surprised at the end of it to think,
Yeah.
do you know what the hell was I like worrying about, because this was actually fun.
So, Georgina, what advice would you give to a woman who is afraid to share her work?
Oh, so it's a tough one. I think if you're worried about showing your work and you're doing it yourself on social media, find someone like me who's willing to show it for you.
Mhm.
Because you can almost launch but hide a little bit and see what the take up is. And what I do with my artists is I provide them kind of updates as to, you know, who's seen their work and how many people have added it to their basket, or, you know, so they see that. I mean, even yesterday I sent a screenshot to my March artist, because, you know, she's still getting loads of views on her work, and I said it's not that people aren't interested, but the work's like, you know, 750 to 950. Not everyone has that to just throw down on a piece of art, and actually it will take 30 to 90 days for them to come up with that decision. So, you know, the fact they keep coming back to it, I said, this is really promising.
Yeah.
And that in itself has been reassuring for her and giving her confidence. She was one of these people that was very nervous about doing all this, and I did an interview with her as well. She was very, very nervous around it, and it is hard. I mean, some artists just won't do it, but point blank, just say no. So you know, the types of women that I'm working with, I'm trying to respect their boundaries and where they want to be, but I'm also very gently nudging them to say, look, just try something new. Like just one thing that's new every month or so. Just push yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone, because I don't think that's unique to the art industry. Actually, I think that's working women. I think there's a lot of women out there that don't speak up in meetings or sit at the table.
Yeah.
You know, they don't take that opportunity.
All right. So I'm going to end our interview with two last questions. And in the asking of the questions, I am going to disappear, and one of you will be on screen answering a question at a time. And we'll start with you, Shveta. The question is a bit of a thought experiment.
Okay.
So if I could take you back, and Georgina, I'm going to remove you and I'll bring you back, okay? If I could take you back to the younger you, this young woman who went out on a limb, decided to follow her passion and become an artist full time. If you could go back and give yourself 3 nuggets of wisdom based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would those 3 nuggets of wisdom be? Just in case there's another woman who's listening to us speaking right now, who's thinking about doing what you've done.
Oh, that's such a lovely question, actually. If I was to go back and speak to my younger self, I genuinely would say that if you believe in your passion, if you believe you were meant to do something or you want to try something, do it. Don't wait for tomorrow. Don't wait for day after. Don't wait for the timing to be perfect. Don't wait for everything in your life to be where it needs to be for you to then take that leap of faith. So do it as soon as possible, because, you know, we are on earth for a limited number of for a limited time, and I feel that, you know, keeping yourself away from something you believe you should be doing, why waste the time? You know, do what you genuinely believe you want to do. The second thing I think I would say to myself is that, you know, my self-worth is not connected to my work. So, you know, today I could be painting a series of work and it may be received brilliantly or it may not be received brilliantly. And going back to what Georgina said about, you know, her artist and, you know, her March artist, I feel that even one pair of eyes on your work is something better than nothing, right? So don't mix the two. You are you, your work's your work, and your work needs to be seen. So don't hold back. You need to push yourself and get into that uncomfortable spot where somebody will walk up across your work and say, do you know what? I could have painted that, or a child can paint that, or oh, I don't know, why she's charging so much. And I have received those kind of comments. But then I've also received comments like, oh my God, your piece of work, has resonated so deeply with me. I love it. People have bought my work. They've said to me, this is the best piece of work in this particular exhibition. Or I've even had a woman who stood in front of my work and actually cried. She was so moved by it. So keeping the two separate, you then know that you're pushing a part of you out there, but it's okay to have it's okay for other people to have a reaction, and it's not a personal comment or dig at you. And I think the last thing I would tell myself is that, your goals will always keep moving forward. So what my goal was 3 years back is no longer the same. It's now moved forward. And I think the only way you can truly assess your growth is not to see where you're going, but it's got to see from where you've come from. And I think that for me would be the 3 pieces that I would tell my younger self.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'll bring Georgina on so she can share her 3 nuggets of wisdom to her younger self.
I think, talking to my younger self, my 3 nuggets of wisdom would be, number 1, say yes to everything. I am a firm believer in positivity, and I think it's not even actually my younger self, because I feel like my inhibitions have grown over the course of time. So I'm far more wary as I've got older than I was when I was younger. But I think it's a continued positivity, a continued say yes to everything, because life is short. You don't know what's going to happen, what's going to come out the other end of it. And that leads me on to my second kind of piece of advice, which is, don't expect everything to have an immediate outcome. I'm someone that is very analytical, and I'm very analytical on myself and what I'm doing. And I like to drive a lot of efficiency and effectiveness with the things that I do. And I don't always see the output of that straight away, and I can become quite impatient with that. But actually, if I look back at the last sort of 20 years of my life and how far I've come, the things that I've done, what I've learned in that process, a lot of that I haven't realised until a lot later on, or hasn't really come to fruition until a lot later on. And I still think there are some things that I did, sort of 15 years ago that I'm applying to what I'm doing in this business today. So, the third thing, I would probably say let people support you. I'm very independent, and I like to think that I can do everything myself. And I think it wasn't really until I met my husband sort of 12, 13 years ago that I sort of eased off on that and started to realize that there are other people that can help me and support me in this world. And I very much came into adult life thinking, as a woman, I've really got to get out there. I've got to be independent. I've got to, make my own money. I've got to be financially stable. I've got to own my own stuff. And I've actually realized as time has gone on that having that support network around you is super important, not just for my own kind of nervous system of not feeling like I have to do everything, but also for my mental well-being. It's kind of trusting people to help me in different ways. So I think say yes to everything, staying positive, not having an immediate outcome or expecting an immediate outcome, and just letting people help me every now and then.
I love it. All right, I'm going to bring you back, Shveta. Let's now give you the last question. Let's teleport into the future this time. And we are going to go and sit with the 90-year-old you. Sitting in her rocking chair, surrounded by her children, her grandchildren, whoever's with you at the end. If you could go and sit with this wise woman who has led you up until that point, What will you say to her when you finally meet her? It's not about asking her questions. What will you say to this incredible woman who's been leading you when you finally meet her?
Oh my God. I think I would say that I am so proud of your choices. I'm so proud that you've lived a life that you wanted. And I'm just happy that you got to do what you really wanted to. You lived the life that was full of kindness, authenticity, passion, and just happiness in doing what you wanted to do.
Fantastic. All right, I will bring you back, Georgina. Now the questions for you. What would you say to your 90-year-old self when you finally meet her?
Well, I hope I do get to 90. That would be incredible. I don't take anything for granted, which is probably reflective of how I've lived my life. I would like to say, you got it done. You did everything that you could have done with your life, and you pivoted at the right moments. You maintained a level of self-awareness that enabled you to do the things that you really felt were important to you and to this world and to society. I certainly feel that from what I'm trying to do with One of a Kind Studio and helping women has given me a new purpose and enabling me to bring back some of the kindness that I think over the course of time working in a corporate environment has it's not gone, but it's certainly been tested. So I'd like to say, you held firm to your values, to what was right for you, and how you go about things, and made those choices in alignment with that rather than pressures from other people.
Absolutely wonderful. Ladies, thank you so much for coming online and sharing your story with our community today.
Thank
It is
you.
always so inspiring when I meet women who collaborate, who work together, who uplift each other in the work that they do.
Thank you so much, Gertrude.
Thank
Been
you.
This opportunity. Thank you.
Really
And
enjoyed it.
I'm glad you did. And thank you to everybody who tuned in. The Her Story Circle is not just a podcast. We are a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share our stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to energize you, but most importantly, to go from where you are now to where you're trying to go. So, if you are a woman who has a desire to be an artist and you need support, you need to learn how to sell your art, here's a fantastic studio that you can join. The website's at the bottom of the screen. Or if you know someone, please tag them on this video. Share this on your social media. Help us empower and reach more women to live their dreams as well. I'll be back again tomorrow, everybody, when I bring on another or two more amazing guests. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And bye for now. Ladies, thank you again for the interview.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and And together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story.
Oh,
Thank you so much.